Emil Cioran was a Romanian man who moved to Paris and did most of his work there. He's written some of the most profound, I think, words ever written by anyone. If you're interested in Cioran, then you should probably start with A Short History of Decay. It's an excellent work, and in fact this is where this quote comes from. Anyway, no one is responsible for being. Well, it's the old adage, isn't it, that you didn't ask to be born. But here you are and you're stuck with it. So no one is responsible for being, and still less for being what he is. We tend to forget that we don't create ourselves. We are created things. And whatever we are is a result of forces that we have no control over. And that's not only your genetics, but also your environment and your conditioning. So no one is responsible for being, and still less for being what he is. Afflicted with existence. Some people don't see existence as an affliction, but I do. And it's a good mindset to have, in truth, because then when unfortunate things happen, and they happen to everybody and they can happen quite frequently, then you're not so surprised. The worst thing you can do in life is be optimistic, because all life will do is knock you around. And your nice optimistic expectations will not come about. Afflicted with existence, each man endures like an animal the consequences which proceed from it. You are what you are. You don't determine what you are. If you're a psychopath, then you haven't determined that. If you are some gullible idiot, you haven't determined that either. And so we endure what we are, like an animal, because despite endless people professing the ability to change people in some way, and of course the psychiatrists are the worst at that, the psychology people, wanting to make us well adjusted. Well, none of us are well adjusted. There is no metric for well adjusted. So we endure like an animal the consequences which proceed from being what we are. And there's nothing you can do about that, despite all the religious, the spiritual, the psychological mumbo-jumbo that would try to convince you otherwise. And in fact, it's a very wise move to accept yourself as you are. In fact, if you can do that, then you are likely to have a fairly, I was going to use the word happy, but a fairly satisfying life. If you can accept yourself as you are, it's likely to be more satisfying than trying to be happy or trying to change yourself. So, no one is responsible for being, and still less for being what he is. Afflicted with existence, each man endures like an animal the consequences which proceed from it.